We're talking with Laura Pappano, writer-in-residence here at the Wellesley Centers for Women. Laura is also a journalist who covers education for the New York Times, and she's co-author of the recent book, Playing with the Boys, Why Separate is Not Equal in Sports. Thanks for talking with us, Laura.
Thank you.
We're going to just throw a few questions out. What's the good news about girls and women in sports now?
Well, I think the big good news is participation. Since Title IX was passed in 1972, there are about the participation of women and girls in sports has just blossomed. In 1972, there are 300,000 girls and women who played sports, and now there are about 3 million. So that's great news. That goes from 1 in 27 to 1 in 3. So many more women are playing sports, and of all ages. I play soccer, and I go there and I see women my age, older, playing sports. It's socially acceptable, it's culturally acceptable, it's kind of part of who we are. And certainly when this was first passed, it was a rare thing for women and girls to feel as comfortable with their bodies and with their role as athletes as they do now.
That is good news. That's very good news. I'm sure there are barriers that still exist. What are some of those barriers? What's the bad news?
Where do I begin? Honestly, the power of sports is not just about around the athletic field, but it's really off the athletic field. It's that sports have repercussions in social, political, and economic arenas, and that's the barrier we keep bumping up against. Is that Title IX gave us, quote unquote, opportunities. Well, we've had those opportunities, we seize those opportunities, but the question is, what now? How do women who are athletes make sense of that experience and translate that experience into into power and recognition and value off the field? And here's an example: is that when we look at male athletes, it's very clear that, especially at school levels, that their athletic play is more highly valued than female play. And one of the pieces of research that we're working on this year is looking at ticket prices. And if you look at ticket prices, whether revenue or non-revenue producing sports, there's very often a gap. And sometimes it's a huge gap, and sometimes it's a meaningless but gap of only a few dollars, or $1, a $1 difference between ticket prices for, let's say, a men's or women's soccer game or a men's or women's basketball game in some cases. And that merely is not about getting revenue, but reminding women that their play is second-class play, that their play, that what they're doing is not as highly valued as what men are doing. And I think that is a tremendous barrier. There are other barriers. Even though we have come a very long way, we still have very few girls playing Little League. You would expect this many years after girls were allowed to play Little League that we would see many more of them on the field. And yet, as a Little League mom, I show up on fields and it is still very surprising to say, oh, there's a girl on the field. And last year I was privy to some emails from local first grade Little League teams in which girls were being harassed. Every time they went around second base, they were being told that baseball's for boys, that they don't belong there. Those sorts of messages are still out there, and there's a lot of self-censorship that goes on among young girls and young women around what they should or shouldn't do athletically. And I think that is some of what we have to change, and I think that can be changed when we address some of the issues at the top around, we have this opportunity, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to value female athletes?
So here we have the Little League, college level, high school level, and then, intramural for adults. What can folks do in their communities, in the schools, that can help generate some of the change to make it more equitable?
Great question. There is so much that we can do. I think, one place to start with the Little League, for example, that one little example I brought up. What struck me was that in looking at all the emails that were going around from the coaches, there was the comment that, let's just, we don't need to make a big deal out of this. Let's just, take care of it and speak with the boys. Well, my very view is that we absolutely need to make a big deal of it, because it's not about fixing kind of some, rudeness or discomfort on the field. but letting girls know that they are not only allowed to play Little League, but welcome, encouraged, and that the culture and environment will be to treat them equally as players, regardless of their gender. So that's one thing. It's just really letting people be individuals and not be viewed by gender first when they're playing a sport. The second thing is to support female athletes and teams. I am, women's basketball is a fabulous sport, and it is gaining a tremendous following. But we have to buy season tickets, and women have to be consumers of female athletics. And the reason that's important is that it's political, it's cultural, it's social, it's economic. We have to make these teams as viable and interesting and as the men's teams. And when I say viable and interesting, I'm not talking about anything they're doing, but I'm saying about the culture around what they're doing. Meaning, watching women's basketball is every bit as exciting as watching men's basketball. And the notion that because, they don't jump as high or there's less dunking, that argument is just so false and absurd, because ultimately the excitement of any sporting event is around the competition. Because frankly, if we were to just judge it on the raw athletic activity, on the act, no one would watch college football, because it certainly is not the NFL. So we really need to recognize, I'm not saying, celebrate for no reason, but I'm saying let's recognize the tremendous athletic skill and let's support it with our dollars. We are in this rut of believing that we should value and therefore pay less for women's sports. And reality is that studies show that when people pay more, they value it more. So we need to look at this whole ticket price issue, but as women, as men, as people who care about gender equality, we have to support these teams.
In addition to the equity issue in general, there really are some benefits that women and girls get from participating in athletics. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there's obviously a lot of research that talks about women's persistence in school when they play sports. It talks about, just healthier, making better choices. But, frankly, I appreciate those studies. But that's, I think, a little bit of the problem, is that we're justifying sports as a lifestyle for women, where I'd rather understand, and this is where we need to do some work. We need to understand that it's not just that sports make girls healthier and healthier people and better students and keeps them from falling off the wagon. The point is that sports is a tool for gaining power and access. And this is the part, is that there's no context. Women play sports, but there's no context. There's no way of understanding how the skills they're getting as athletes translate into concrete skills in the workplace and in the political arena, these leadership skills. Whereas we very well understand that Tom Brady could run for a political office based merely on his role as a quarterback. Do we have any understanding of what top female athletes are capable? But there's not a widespread understanding of that translation of skills, and that's a place where I think there's tremendous benefit. And anecdotally, you meet these powerful women and who are smart and not afraid to take risks and to do things, and very, very often they have played some kind of organized sport at some highly competitive level, but there's no broad understanding. There's no way for us to use that in terms of translating those skills to other arenas, and we need to do that.
That will be good exploration to work on in the next year or two.
Absolutely.
Thanks for talking with us, Laura.
Thank you.